Thank you for listening to the Business and Beyond podcast.
We appreciate all of our listeners. If this is your first time listening to the Business and Beyond podcast, we hope you enjoy this episode. Episode 56 of the Business and Beyond podcast is brought to you by Raze Energy Drinks. Use our coupon code, our exclusive promo code, BusinessBeyond, to get an extra 15% off your Raze Sports orders on our website, or on their website. And if you can see on YouTube, I'm drinking a Raze Energy drink. And for the ones who are listening to on one of our various different podcasting platforms, I'm drinking South Beach because that's all that they had available.
Got the Miami vibes on the can.
See, as a millennial, because I have no clue, Miami Heat, the Miami Marlins wear those sometimes. They have. As a millennial, I'm just thinking Grand Theft Auto Vice City.
Yeah.
That's what the colors.
That's what it looks like.
Like, is it Miami Vice, something to do with this show? I don't know why those colors are like that. But speaking of being a millennial, and this being our Super Bowl, our post-Super Bowl recap episode, see, I enjoyed the halftime show, as I suppose you did too, because growing up, those were our, I don't know if I'm not one to say it was the best or the worst or this or that. It's just most recent, so that's why every president's always the best or the worst president. Mm-hmm. They're never just the middle of the road president. But it was very, very good. I was thinking they're not doing Rolling Stones or Paul McCartney, and then it hit me that it's because we're at that age now where it's like everybody over 50 hated it.
Yeah, I couldn't.
Everybody under 30 had no idea who they were. And then I'm just sitting here like, this is great.
I couldn't figure out why my 14-year-old wasn't as excited as I was about it.
But 50 Cent still makes music. Eminem still has...
Cool. Eminem was probably really, for any generation, he was probably the most
So Landon's never heard of it, 50 Cent?
No, he's heard of it. He doesn't listen to that type of...
Well, I don't listen to that anymore. I used to. I could probably name 3 Eminem songs.
But again, Dr. Dre, Snoop Dogg, just about everybody knows
Snoop Dogg's still there. Okay.
He's a household name.
At the risk of sounding like one of those old parents that want to say hip, Snoop Dogg's still cool though, right?
Yeah.
He is. He's like at the top right now. Him and Eminem. Mary J. Blige, honestly, I had no idea I know who she is. But when they popped up, it took me a minute to recognize her. I'm like, who is that? But 50 Cent, I knew as soon as it popped up, just because from the Wife Beater. Mm-hmm. And that's what we listened to in high school.
Yeah, and Kendrick Lamar. He was one of the younger...
It took me a minute to realize who he was when I saw him.
But all in all, what is it, a 17, 18-minute halftime show? And that was... it was fire, like the kids would say today. It really was. Wow. It really was a good halftime show, a good performance. It was something, really, I would have much rather sat 4 hours and watched that than I would that football game. Yeah,
because you get into some of these songs, but they're only singing them for 30, 40 seconds, and they're moving on to a different song.
Well, and talking about the football game, that really was what I expected the Super Bowl game would be. It was a tight matchup. It was a back and forth game. It went down to the wire, down to the end. It
seems like, though, for it to be such a close game, it was a really boring game. I think, despite the score being, was it 23-20? It was a defensive battle.
Yeah.
Like, the Rams could not get their running game going. The Bengals seemed to do pretty good until the second half. They just couldn't protect Burrow.
Yeah, really, it was barely into the third quarter they did okay, and then about the 11 minutes left in the third quarter, they just couldn't get anything going from that point on. In the fourth quarter, they were pretty much non-existent.
And man,
as dominating as the first half was for them, when I guess what was it? The first few seconds, even of the third quarters, when they scored within 12 seconds. And then within another 10 seconds, they had the interception. Yeah.
And I'm thinking, you score there, 24-13, it's probably over.
I thought it was ball game at that point.
But no, that big play, that big no call on. Some people are like, well, that's good if good no call and pass interference. But I'm thinking, well, what about face masking? Because he grabbed
or legal hands to the face.
Yeah, legal hands to the face. So I understand you have it. It didn't look intentional, but that doesn't matter on face masking. No. Pass interference, sure. But I just thought, even up until that point, I don't remember any flags. Up until late in the fourth quarter.
No, I think the only flag you had was I can't remember the player's name that came on the field undressed, the personal foul penalty after the touchdown.
And there was one delay game penalty, which might have been in the fourth quarter. But up until that final drive.
Something that was interesting that I saw too, Odell injured, sounds like it's probably most likely his ACL, which is, to me, I don't remember in Super Bowl games or even the history of watching the Super Bowl
a bigger player getting hurt like that.
Any really player? I mean, do you ever remember? It's nothing that comes to mind of someone getting hurt in the Super Bowl.
Well, usually, they have the week off.
Yeah,
they always have the week off, so they.
You also had Joe Burrow was injured for a moment.
I thought he was done. You saw him screaming, holding his knee. I don't know if it was the same knee it hurt last year. You also
saw the foot on Matt Stafford.
That was bad.
So you had some of these things, and I know they're freak things, but I started thinking about, they added that 17th game to the schedule. Does that have something to do with some of these injuries?
And neither of these teams had the bye week in the first round. Had never had the bye in the first round because they were 4 seeds.
Right. So you got last week off, yes, but your body still can only endure so much. And is
21 games in 23 weeks, pretty much.
So is the money worth it for the NFL?
For the owners, it is.
For a star player like Odell that's probably going to miss the next 10 to 12 months.
But I don't think anything's going to change unless it's just constant. Like every team's going to have one of these because you always have players. I think
it's something to watch going forward in the future. And keep that in mind of towards the end of the season, and especially through playoffs and Super Bowl. Do you have significant players at that being injured?
We'll see because obviously the ratings for the Cowboys went down with Dak not being in there. I'm sure they were still relatively high, but not what they normally were. That's where it would have to hit the owners, because they'll just say, well, it's part of the game. People always get hurt, which is true. You always have big-time players tearing ACLs. A few years ago, it seemed like there was a lot more, with it was when I think San Francisco opened their new stadium and their grass was, they were having an uptick of knee injuries.
And I wonder if that too, you have everything going to artificial turf. If that doesn't have something to do with it also with all the knee injuries. It's definitely something that I think you'd keep an eye on going forward, and hopefully the owners in the league would keep an eye on this, and weigh the options versus
because I think right now they're talking here in a couple of years you're going to have an 18th game.
Yeah, I just don't think you can do that. I really don't.
Because even if you take away the preseason games, no one's playing in the preseason anyways.
Right.
Not to the extent where they're putting wear and tear on their body. No, and you would like to think the owner. Obviously, I'm sure the owners have the players' best interest. To what they think in their head is they're putting the best interest forward, and at least here when we hear Jerry Jones talking, you think he truly loves his players. At least that's the way he acts, and maybe sometimes too much, where he's signing players when they shouldn't be signed. But most owners, it's got to hit them in the pocketbook. Joe Burrow gets hurt late in the season.
Yeah.
Next year, you probably say something like, he's injury prone now. But how many teams have to have star players get hurt? And even then, are they going to say, well, they're playing too many games?
Yeah.
And as long as the TV money is going to be there and the players are going to earn more, are the players going to say anything? They'll probably just say, as long as I'm going to make money, because you're always risking getting injured.
It's going to be something for the Players Association to step in and maybe try to negotiate in, in whenever their next contract's up. I know they just recently had those, so. But so you had obviously the halftime show's way up here. The game was down here, right in the middle. People were tuning in for. For the
last part, for a 23 to 20 game, down there. I think it was right there in the middle. It wasn't an amazing game. It got real exciting up to the end, and it wasn't a blowout. It was back and forth. I thought, the Rams are running away with this, and I thought, Bengals have got this, and then they kind of gave it away.
I'm talking about just for Super Bowls in general.
Yeah.
People are only showing up.
Commercial.
Halftime show, and then we got commercials.
Yeah.
The commercials, that's where the money's made. So actually the report, and we did some research on this week, from last year's Super Bowl to this year's Super Bowl, a 30-second spot went up by $1 million. Went from 5.5 million now to 6.5.
Inflation.
That's a hell of an inflation. But then also there were some commercials, I guess, depending on the slots and the exact time you go. The highest point it reached was a $7 million. I tried to find that, and I couldn't find that. We talked about trying to pinpoint some of these commercials, and I had a hard time finding what each of these companies actually paid.
But you think a lot of them had multiple commercials.
Yeah.
Toyota had one, with the Keeping Up with the Joneses and Jonas one.
Yeah.
But then they had the one where it was like I think it was skiing, and it had like the Paralympic athletes, and you think it's advertising Paralympics, and at the end it's just a Toyota logo, and like good for them for paying for that. But did they pay for the whole spot, or did they just say, hey, NBC says we're going to put this in there. Does anyone want to put their logo at the end for a certain amount of money? Because
no, I'm pretty sure
typically you would think, okay, throw a Toyota truck somewhere in the ad. Because I had no idea it was a Toyota commercial until the end. Now, is that...
But I think that's that part of it. They want to tug your heartstrings. You got... Anheuser-Busch does a really good job of that, too. They don't push the beer. They do the horses and this sentimental story. And
that's because we're expecting it. They have one of those every year.
But
they're going to always do it.
And now others are following suit. They want to see what they can do just to tug on your heartstrings and see if that gets you to, man, you know what? These are great people. We want to go spend our money with them.
Well, as much as trucks are these days, I don't know that I'm like, that commercial is going to go get me to buy a Toyota truck. Maybe if you're already in the market.
It might get me to buy them just because they're pretty good looking trucks now.
I mean, you have the commercial with all the Joneses.
Yeah.
And then that one more likely because you're watching the trucks drive. But you're paying $6 million or $6.5 or whatever it is for that. Do you make your money back?
It's a gamble, isn't it? It's a
gamble. I mean, we're talking about it, and they're to their defense.
So that was
we're talking about it right now.
That was what they that's something that's big. It's not just the 30-second spot you get. It's us talking about it. All the news stations, the morning shows, everyone's talking about these. And even before, there were some commercials that had already aired before the Super Bowl. You had seen leaks of them or trailers of them. So they're getting their money's worth. I mean, they're going to be talked about for a month, and then now they're going to continue to run these ads.
So those, I'm talking about this one or this one, and maybe you noticed it, maybe you didn't. You may not know exactly what I'm talking about if you don't remember it. But one I know everybody saw if they were in the room was Coinbase.
Yeah.
You remember that? It was just the little QR code going back and forth, and then we're like, okay, at what point are you gonna just pull it out, pull your phone out? I almost said something where you could take a drug. Pull out your phone, and my son was the first one because I'm about 10 seconds in. I'm like, I might as well scan that QR code, and Bryson's already doing it, and he's looking, and it brings you to the Coinbase app, which is kind of cool if you can get them to get it on your phone. Mm-hmm. Just like I work in sales, I could call somebody and they could say, "Yeah, I'm interested," but unless I'm in there with a quote in front of their face with giving my presentation, there's a big difference, and they're already on their phone. How many of you thought? Of listeners right now have been thinking that you want to get into crypto. You just don't know how, or you don't know when, or you're just kind of there, and you see a commercial like, yeah, I need to start investing in Bitcoin or whatever. But you have it up on your phone. You're like, you might as well just hit this commercial right now. Mm-hmm. Might as well just hit sign up. And that was it was at least a 30-second commercial. That's all it was. Just a little QR code bouncing back and forth, changing colors.
And I bet all it took was them to get. They get a few 100,000 people that will do that, and it's done.
Because a lot of them, I think Coinbase is one of them. You do initial deposit of $25, you get $5 or something like that.
Yeah.
So you just think, make $6 million, quick math, $25 a pop. Let's see, 100,000 people, that would be 2.5 million. I think so. 300,000 people, your money's back.
Yeah.
And they're investing that money.
But they have transaction fees. They have yeah. No, it's smart. And that was something. Speaking of crypto, there was a lot of crypto ads. What else was there that was?
One that sticks out, which is weird. I don't think of it as a big company. It's kind of a Rocket Mortgage because it's like Quicken Loans, and you're like you think Quicken Loans is kind of Payday.
That was the one that
the Barbie one, and it had the actress that played all the singing movies.
Yeah.
I thought that was a pretty entertaining commercial too.
Funny.
And then there was the one of the first commercials, the babies and the helicopter.
The E-Trade. I knew instantly.
I had no clue.
No, I knew instantly because they used to have those Super Bowl ads years ago that were in cribs, and they were doing the E-Trade stuff. As soon as they saw it, and everybody was watching, I'm like, it's E-Trade, and then that's like, why babies? I'm like, that's just what they do.
That's one that would make you think, because that didn't resonate with me.
Well, so another one too is
some commercials you might go too far and you don't remember.
You had what the T-Mobile and Verizon. Now they all have the home internet. There's a lot of that was there. The cable guy.
The cable.
Did you see that one?
That was one of the better ones too.
Did you notice though? A lot of the ads used a lot of big name stars in them this year.
And in the last few years, you kind of
think that's because it was in LA and there was a lot of stars at. Like, this is just a star-studded Super Bowl.
They had it under wraps. Like, I had no clue. When I saw like him looking through the peephole, I remember seeing a clip of that somewhere, and I'm like, oh, that's what they're talking. Because I thought it looked like Jim Carrey in wherever I saw it, but a lot of people were surprised by that, because typically you have leaks and you're like, okay, there's going to be a commercial about this.
They'd have trailers or something.
But they had it under wraps this year. There wasn't a lot of, even in the halftime show, I don't want to brag, but apparently it was a big secret that 50 Cent was going to be there. But I saw it. I heard it or saw it somewhere, because I was talking to my wife about it, and she's like, who else is coming? I was like, I know 50 Cent's going to be on here, and there he was. And then I've heard all day today that it was a big secret, which 50 Cent's your big secret. Yeah. But okay. But I'm like, I don't know. Maybe I'm just in the end wherever I saw it. But they did a good job of keeping everything under wraps. And I'm thinking, I heard there was a surprise star, which I guess ended up being 50 Cent. But I thought maybe that's Ice Cube or something, because I'm surprised Ice Cube wasn't in there.
Yeah.
Because 50 Cent's New York, and even Eminem's Detroit.
Yeah.
Maybe Ice Cube and Dr. Dre kind of a thing
Well, it's
going.
because they're all, produced by Dr. Dre, so
yeah,
they're all the same. But
all the same,
essentially. I mean, they've all together. Dr. Dre produced all of them, so he's their protege. So I forgot where I was going to go with the. Go ahead.
Yeah. So, but I'm thinking, I guess, what song would Ice Cube come up and sing that Dr. Dre, Dr. Dre wouldn't be already involved in? But are you going to make your money back from that? Like, I think another good one was BMW had Arnold Schwarzenegger playing Zeus.
Oh, yeah.
And then BMW had it was Kia, who was being on electric cars, had the one with the robot dog.
Yeah.
So you kind of have cryptocurrency, electric vehicles.
There was a couple of those.
There was the all-electric Silverado I saw, which looks pretty cool. And people were eventually moving to all-electric because they have... You have the I don't know if it's the United Nations or who the governing body is, but everyone's supposed to, at some, maybe 2050, you're not supposed to be able to sell any new cars that aren't all electric. Now, whatever problems that's going to bring up, because, we already have issues with our electric grid, but they think that's less of an issue than fossil fuels, I guess.
See in 25 years.
But that's where everyone's going to. I'm not saying that's where we will be, but that's where everyone's gearing toward and trying. All the Chevy doesn't care, GM doesn't care if they. Obviously they care if they lose money, but they're more worried about keeping up with protocols and laws right now more than anything. They could lose their ass out on this car, and the $6 million ad that promoted it. But overall, you get that green company.
Yeah.
Everyone wants to be green nowadays, and good publicity, I guess. Yeah. But and BMW probably, they just sell. How many cars they have to sell to make a few $1 million? But it's year in year out. Doritos always has big ads, which I thought I was a little disappointing this year. But how are they going to make $6 million? That's a lot of chips they have to sell.
I think you're doing it. You have that budgeted that it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
More importantly, how awkward was it to have The Rock at the beginning of the game? They're ready to kick off, and he's in the middle of the field still talking with his... Did you see that part? Still in the game? I'm watching this. I'm like, this is so uncomfortable. Get off the field. They're ready to kick off. Let's go. Like,
I think a lot of it was
really
weird because
up.
they tried it. Like, they couldn't promote the Rams as the home team. Like, they didn't want. I mean, the fans obviously wanted the Rams there, but the NFL didn't want the Rams there because it looks like they're just one-sided. Mm-hmm. They wanted to promote Hollywood.
Yeah.
And when the Rams are there, they're kind of like, well, we have to. It seemed weird to me. If I'd have been a Bengals fan, I probably would have thought, how everyone thinks Schrakeman hates the Cowboys. And,
yeah.
And Tony Romo's kind of doesn't really like the Cowboys. Like, well, they're trying to be neutral. But as a Bengals fan, I've been really pissed off because it would seem like that, well, they're kind of it was in LA. It was in Hollywood.
Everything was shifted towards the Rams.
Yeah, and when The Rock was kind of explaining Hollywood, then he goes to the Rams like it's all one part. And it was awkward when he was like, and then talk about AFC, the Bengals.
Yeah.
Yeah, it should have been, I'll talk about Hollywood and then talk about the two teams, but they just happened. They did such a good job that I think it did them a disservice to actually have a Los Angeles team in the Super Bowl.
I think so. I do have to say, though, that stadium is top-notch from TV standings. I mean, just seeing that, that really puts, when Cowboys Stadium opened, or now AT&T Stadium, that was the epitome, right? It looks like a dump now compared to something like the Rams. That Rams Stadium
for a football stadium, believe it or not, I'm saying like professional ratings, but you look at a bunch of big-time YouTubers that their YouTube page is all about stadiums. AT&T Stadium's still out there. It's at least 1, 2, maybe 1, 2 with SoFi Stadium as a football stadium. But you're looking at SoFi on
everything else. I'm looking at everything else.
Have you looked at new soccer arenas or whatever, Japan's building arenas, China's? Yeah. That's what SoFi Stadium. It's more like a multi-use arena. Yeah, it's multi-use, but it doesn't look like a stadium. It's got, it's obviously a different shape, but you look at it, you're like, well, that's kind of weird. And they're like, oh, yeah, you play soccer here.
Oh, and you have the circular screen in the middle and the top. Yeah. That's really
it's
cool.
on both sides. Yeah.
Yeah, it really is just, and it lended itself very well for TV on the cutaways. You have lots of suites all over at different levels. It really was, I know every year it's like, oh, this is the best. They did better. Like, this really was a good put-on Super Bowl, all in all. And really, it makes sense to be in LA, to have a Super Bowl there. My son was asking me kind of, well, why doesn't the Cowboys have it? Well, last time it was kind of didn't work out too well with the Cowboys with the weather, but
with the ice,
it really makes sense. I can remember
pushing
as a kid,
into February.
I can remember as a kid,
it's worse for North Texas.
Florida and California, those are the two places the Super Bowls they should be.
New
held.
Orleans. Well, New Orleans has had it the most.
They have
stadium,
but like San Diego, I can remember as a kid, San Diego was a great place. Like, to me, California or Florida, either one at this time of year is the best place to have a Super Bowl.
And now it's, I guess, LA more because they have the stadium.
Yeah, now with that's even better.
But
Vegas is actually a really
be
good place.
But
is that next year?
No, Arizona. It's Arizona. New Orleans always get it, and then
Arizona's
Miami and
a weird
Tampa
one
Bay.
for me. Arizona just doesn't seem like there's enough.
They have a lot of sports stuff because you have spring
the
training
nightlife
there.
Type stuff.
Yeah,
and Arizona just doesn't have that at the same level that obviously LA or Vegas. To me,
I think they do a good enough job. I think obviously you're comparing Vegas and Los Angeles nightlife, but Arizona is very hospitable for having large numbers of people for events because they have spring training there, which is different. But you have a lot. Half of MLB teams go there, plus all their, that's 1,000 extra people just right there for a month. And Arizona is different for a reason, while why DFW is different, or maybe not so much. Los Angeles is spread out just as much as DFW is. Yeah. I don't think DFW being spread out was an issue as much people say it was, because it's a 20-minute drive from Fort Worth to Dallas downtown.
Yeah.
Without traffic. But that's an issue when you have an ice storm and you can't.
Exactly.
Yeah. I think, weather here
this weekend was
would have
perfect. Been, yeah.
Every year we're like, man, why couldn't it have been this year? This is perfect. It was Saturday was a little bit chilly, but yesterday it was 65, perfect. 70 degrees.
It'd have been perfect to have the roof open.
The the roof never. Yeah, it's not going to be open. It's got to be perfect. But I hear what you say. But the weather's good. It seems like you get a brand new stadium that's really good. When you say really good, I mean MetLife Stadium got to host the Super Bowl. But look at the stadiums right before the Cowboys. Cowboys kind of set a new trend, because even if SoFi seems on a different level, it's still the Cowboys set a trend Look at, like you said, MetLife, which came after the Cowboys, but it was the old design. Ford Field, or Ford Stadium, the Lions. I used to think that was a badass stadium, and now looking at it, it's like,
Yeah.
Was
it the Vikings? Did they host
the
one?
the Vikings.
Did they host? I don't know.
Yeah, right.
Did they?
When the Eagles won it, because the Vikings were in the NFC Championship game and they lost to the Eagles. But yeah, Minnesota's is different. But the Colts, Lucas Oil Stadium, which I get, they're trying to make it look like the Field House, kind of go more like, I guess, a basketball type theme, because that's where it originated from.
My son brought up a good point of, why doesn't the NFL just build a neutral site stadium for the Super Bowl? And that's where it's at every year.
The logistics of that, well, like, obviously they have the money. They could just, I mean, it would be $4 or $5 billion. But what are you going to do with it in the meantime?
You could host other events there. I mean, you could have neutral site events. You could have college football. You know what I'm saying? Like,
but they have countries that host the Olympics.
Yeah.
And it's not like the U.S. where we just have stadiums everywhere. They build these stadiums, and then they had to figure out, they had to turn them into office buildings or apartments, because they just go in decay. Whole countries can't. And now, I understand what you say. Just like, hey, maybe have...
Yeah, but you could have bowls there.
You could have events, college games.
You could host boxing matches. You could have... I mean, it could be a multi-concert venue. I mean...
But I think the NFL likes being at different places.
I guess part of it is that these cities bid it out, right?
Yeah.
So every city has the potential. This year the numbers were that they had the potential to make $400 billion for was it a billion or million?
Probably
million. I'm sorry.
Yeah, because Super Bowl
it was
they
hard
had
the potential this year
$400
million that they had, that they could potentially make on hosting the Super Bowl.
Look at here when Dallas hosted at DFW with the big ice storm, but that Saturday before, that weekend before the Super Bowl, that Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, it was still pretty cold, but it thawed out, and you had Pittsburgh and Green Bay in there, so they didn't care about the weather. But that whole week, you missed a lot of stuff. Like, you still had all the events, but the local economy, where the hotels, did all right regardless.
Yeah.
But restaurants, bars, things like that. Just Sundance Square in downtown Fort Worth had the most profitable weekend on record in history, those 3 days. And so you're thinking, man, what if it was all week? And then you're looking at Dallas. You could have taken advantage of Uptown, probably even Frisco to some extent. You'd be all over the place when it's 60, 70 degrees, and you don't have to drive on ice. But
and now even with it lends better for Arlington to host is with Texas Live.
Yeah.
With
right
that,
next to it.
Yeah.
And that was kind of a knock on it, is there's nothing really down there to do.
There wasn't anything around it. Now that's starting to become more... is some of it, though, Arlington not having mass transit, too, that...
It's the biggest city in the U.S. that does not have mass transit. Largest city in the U.S. And DFW kind of gets a knock on mass transit. Yeah, you kind of have to own a car, but you can make it around besides Uber and Lyft. Because you have Fort Worth has its own and Dallas has its own. And they kind of integrate a little bit where you can...
Yeah.
But
TRE.
It's difficult if you're not used to dealing with and having to deal with two completely different entities there. And I think, I'm not sure why Arlington doesn't. Like you could say budget issues or whatever, but every large city, and Arlington, 300,000 people, that's not in itself a large city. I think it's probably top 30 in the U.S. But every large city in the world, especially in Europe, because they're all about mass transit over there and trains.
Yeah.
How could you not put that in there? You have all these tax dollars now for your stadiums. I guess that's where it's all going right now. But now that you got one stadium paid off, the other one they're working on, why can't you just put a little thing together? Or at least reach out to Dallas or Fort Worth and for the most part, contract some stuff. Hey, add a few more TRE buses over here or DART buses. There's a couple of train stops there. The infrastructure's there already, and I'm sure TRE has some stops in Arlington on the way to Dallas. But it seems like you could have something there, especially with all the different stadiums they're building there. And I believe they're working on building the new Arlington Convention Center right in there. There's going to be hotels. And that's why, Cowboys fans who are listening, where you're like, why don't you just put curtains on the stadium? It was a design where there's supposed to be a hotel there blocking the sun, and that's what they're kind of working on.
End up being more or less a downtown type setting in that.
Yeah,
in that
and it kind of looks like they have
buildings
Six Flags
the buildings that will block.
Yeah, and it does look like it was Six Flags right there. Tall structures, but yeah, they have not your Motel 6s or
right,
or you have legitimate hotels being built there and big event type structures and foundations going in over there. And right now, when they're working, it seems like they've been working forever. 360 and 30, all the interchanges, because now you don't have to loop around, go through a stoplight. It's still in the works, but it seems like that's going to be.
They're moving in the right direction, hopefully, to make another bid for a Super Bowl.
Cowboys.
And early on, I remember when the Super Bowl was here, it felt like that was early on of Verbo and stuff like that to Airbnb. Like that was new, because I remember hearing people that were renting their houses out during Super Bowl week for people to have parties and things and making money. I thought, man, that's weird, but now it's kind of just a normal thing.
Yeah. So there were people renting out their driveways. You could park there for like $500 because parking was over $1,000 at the stadium.
Yeah.
Which is ridiculous after you spend $6,000 on a cheap ticket.
Yeah.
Like another $1,000 to park. But Arlington or DFW had an outside chance of hosting this Super Bowl. Was it a couple months ago with the new laws? I think we talked about a different episode. But I remember how weird would that halftime show have been if it was here? And, with the setup of all Los Angeles and, Southern LA, that would have been kind of an awkward Super Bowl if it had been held in Arlington.
Yeah, because at that, you really knew you were watching a game in LA. You got that feel, that atmosphere, the big names, the halftime show. Everything about that, yesterday's Super Bowl was completely around LA. You felt that, the culture, and that was, you knew that this stadium is tied deep into Inglewood, one of the predominant neighborhoods there that, and obviously they're working on cleaning that neighborhood up as well and bringing it back to, what it was prior to what we know it as.
Yeah, and hopefully the Cowboys will get a chance to redeem themselves for, I guess, DFW and the stadium with a future Super Bowl, because coming up pretty soon, 2026, the host of the World Cup. It's a North American deal, so Canada, U.S., and Mexico are sharing, and I believe the Cotton Bowl is involved in that too. I know Frisco, the Toyota Stadium. Is it still Toyota Stadium? AT&T Stadium, Houston, and Austin. And then I think the Cotton Bowl is involved in that. They'll have, I'm sure the finals won't be. They'll probably have that in LA. Because I think LA was the original bidder trying to get the World Cup.
Yeah.
And they thought better chance we just expand it to all North America. So you're going to have World Cup soccer games at AT&T Stadium, at least one. So that'd be pretty cool because they do a pretty good job with soccer. They have the Konica.
So how do they
championships
handle that? All being all over. I mean, is it over a month period?
I think typically it's pretty widespread.
They break out like groups, and these groups play in these areas, like in divisions, and then
I would think so.
Because you're flying back and forth constantly.
No, you have. I guess you play every day in each group. You play the other three teams. I'm sure there's.
And they set up one location where the championship meets.
Yeah, so if you had Texas, and I don't know what other areas, if the Superdome is involved in that, but you have different areas where there's 5 or 6. You could probably have a couple of
teams
groups
playing.
Yeah, actually, you probably have each group in each stadium, almost. I'm not sure.
Yeah, because you're probably playing all day long. I mean, it's just
I'm sure the logistics aren't figured out, but it seems, because I know when you're talking about MLS and they have weekly games. It's one game a week. And even in the playoffs, it's one game a week, sort of like football, American football. So I don't know if they could just play every day. I think they at least have to have a break of a couple of days.
Well, I mean, don't they do in the Olympics, they play like that? I mean, every couple of days they're playing a game.
Well, I think overall there's games every day. You have it how the schedule's worked out where they're playing almost every day, but maybe these 4 teams play Monday, these teams play Tuesday, Wednesday. There's at least a 3-day gap. I don't know if you're a soccer fan, you're into the World Cup and Olympic soccer, let us know. Because I can't imagine you could play that every day. If you can, why do you stretch out the MLS season?
Yeah.
Once a week. Even Euro Champions League, you see that. They'll Saturdays and Sundays, you'll have them early in the morning at 8, 9, 10 a.m. playing, but they're playing once a week. Unless that's the only broadcasts we get. Yeah. So that's constantly running across a large field. That would tire you out.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the logistics of it yet, but we're going to at least have big events here too.
So now football season's over.
NFL
season.
You got a couple of months, and then you have USFL coming.
And then...
your boy's coaching Houston.
Who's that? Oh, yeah.
A&M's old coach.
Sumlin?
Kevin Sumlin.
So what about our buddy, your co-host on the sports page?
Real quick. We'll back up real quick. I thought it was odd that The Rock was there because I thought, well, he's the commissioner. He's the owner of the... I don't know if he's the commissioner. He's the owner of the XFL. That's kind of conflicting, isn't it?
No, he needs the NFL. That. No, he needs to piggyback off the
for
NFL.
For him, sure, but why would the NFL?
So have you seen the meme? I know we're getting way off topic, but see the meme. I saw it today. That is the XFL champion and the worst team in the NFL should play
and swap if
whoever wins. Whoever wins gets to play in the NFL the next season. And the worst team, they're always competing. That would be bigger than the Super Bowl. You would have so many people tuning in to watch that to see who gets kicked out of the NFL and who gets promoted in.
The NFL wouldn't... Okay, first of all, there's too many moving parts there. Like, it's fun to talk about, but legitimately, if whoever... I guess the teams are still going to be the same. They're not playing till next year.
You're talking money, you're talking contracts. But there's a lot of problems.
The renegade. They would have to be part of the NFL in some regards. Like a minor league system where you're just like, okay, just move y'all up and y'all down.
Yeah.
Because you're talking about everybody on the Jacksonville Jaguars, every player, which, let's say, the worst team in the NFL and the best team in the NFL.
But you're dealing with free agency issues, crossing.
Right now, whichever team was, before COVID hit, the best team in the XFL, I don't think it would be close. I don't think they'd be able to compete. You have a bunch of...
That would be so interesting to watch, It would be. I would tune into that.
It would be, but there's so many gimmicks that I don't think the...
I really think Alabama could come in and beat... Like, we just need a universal... We just need a universal... No, I really think Alabama could come in and compete against the Lions or the Jaguars.
But... Oh, man.
Or the Colts.
You could have a whole episode on this. But how many players on Alabama this year, or even Georgia, is going to play in the NFL? Now, given a lot higher than average, maybe half.
A lot of them from Alabama.
Maybe half of their starters. I think one year Alabama had every defensive
not just player. Necessarily that player, but a team concept.
But look at the line. Now, I will cede to you that they have a chance because Jacksonville or Detroit, there's no incentive other than they don't want to be losing to a college team. It can get in their head. But talent-wise, the NFL team's better because every single player on the Jacksonville Jaguars, outside of maybe the bottom few that got to play, they belong in the NFL. Not every player... How many star players, I'll even say future star players, we'll go ahead and call them stars now, play on Alabama right now?
I bet more than you think.
Probably
I think Alabama is... Any other college team, maybe not. Alabama is a beast of their own. I mean, I know Georgia pulled it off, but you're talking
Trevor Lawrence beat Alabama, but he couldn't.
But you're talking more concepts and things, and that's why
he also beat the Buffalo Bills. So that's not a true comparison. No, it would definitely be interesting to watch and talk about, but you never get a true. Even if they agree to, you never get a true matchup because there's nothing in it for them. There's nothing. The owners don't want their players to get hurt playing. There's nothing for the NFL to gain, but everything to lose.
Yeah.
It's the same thing when it's fun. Let's not have the Pro Bowl. Let's have the worst 2 teams play for the number 1 pick. Yeah, that's fun, but the players don't care about the pick. Like maybe.
No, you're
if
right.
the Cowboys,
the players don't care.
You have Dak Prescott cares.
The players care about themselves and the money they're going to make.
Well,
they
think
really
about
don't
the players.
Care as much.
The players that have nothing involved. How many players are out of contract now?
You know how you
like? What do they care? I'm not going to play
for.
I'm not going to play for the Jacksonville Jaguars this year. My contract's up. Why am I going to play for y'all to get a number 1 pick? It's going to be like bowl games where people are opting out.
You know how you do it though? The two worst teams play. The winner gets the number 1 pick. The loser gets the last pick. You make it that tough on them.
Man, there'd be no parity then ever in the NFL, which I guess there's not a whole lot already. I mean, you still have, but you go Cincinnati went from worst.
Let's get back to the players.
Players.
Or what is the fan controlled league?
Oh yeah. Go back. Sorry.
This is what I was actually trying
my
to get
co-host
the point to.
Chris Robb Jr.
He's playing
on the sports page. He's the draft. I believe is in April. I think there's still a draft.
Okay.
And they don't go by cities. They don't go by. They all play. I believe in Atlanta, somewhere in Georgia.
They're all
one arena, and they get drafted by different teams.
You're drafted, but
you have the same defense. It's kind of like fantasy football in a way. The defenses all stay together. Offensive linemen stay together. And then you have quarterbacks, you have receivers, running backs, extra.
And that's week to week
Week to week. And so you have, like, Marshawn Lynch owns a team. Austin Eckler owns a team. There's a couple more. I think there's 6 teams now. But no, it's pretty cool. It legitimately is fan-controlled. You download the app, and you watch the games, and you vote on which plays they run, which I assume the coach picks 2 or 3 plays for you to see, and you click on whatever. In reviews, remember the AAFL, you were actually hearing what they were all talking about. You'll get that, but you get to vote on what you think the real call was.
Oh, that's awesome.
So a little room there for, I guess it works out because in the NFL it wouldn't work out because all the Cowboys fans would whichever call best benefits. But here you do pick your favorite team. I guess you're able to interact with. And I haven't picked mine yet because I'm going to wait to see where Chris goes. Chris goes. So I guess you may have legitimate thoughts on what might have, was it a catch, was it not, was it a penalty, because you're not really too tied in with the team. But it's pretty cool. It's one apparently Johnny Manziel couldn't. I know he was trying out for it last year, but he wasn't in it, so I don't know what happened with that.
But your co-host and our good friend of the show
is going to be
Chris Robb's going to be in it.
He's already tried out, and he's in it, and he'll be.
That's awesome.
Yeah, he was in the indoor football league. Played for North Dakota's team. He played for Quad City, which is Chicago's team. He was trying to get down here with the Frisco Fighters, but he was signed as a signed contract with the fan-controlled football league, the FCFC.
And
FCFL, sorry.
And everybody
FCFL.
can tune into that, the sports page.
Yeah, we have every Saturday we post our episodes.
And check out you and Chris Robb both on that.
Yeah, absolutely. We just had our Super Bowl this past Saturday, our Super Bowl pre-show or Super Bowl special, wherever we talked to. And it's kind of like this. We talk about everything. Absolutely everything. We talked about how horrible let's talk about the Pro Bowl, man. That was...
I mean, here we talk about business here, right? And this is
bad business for
the
NFL.
Business for the NFL. The Pro Bowl is absolutely terrible. I didn't even watch I only saw the highlights of it. And that was highlights of 2-touch.
So
these guys are fully.
I saw people posting about the Pro Bowl, about how bad it was, and I didn't know. I'm like, I must have missed something. Something's going on. And then I saw the highlights. They might as well, lose the football pants, just wear shorts, and play flag football. Maybe even lose their pads and just wear helmets.
I think so.
If they were to flag football, I don't think they get so much slack for it.
Yeah.
because two touch, like they weren't even calling it right because they touch him and then he'd keep going. Like I think this was Alvin Kamara before he got arrested. With touching, he kept going. They touched him like 6 times, and lose this.
Was that really the rule though? Was that really the rule? It was 2 touch? Or nobody wanted to tackle?
Well, I don't know. The offensive lines were kind of half-ass blocking. Defensive lines kind of trying to half-ass.
Yeah, blitz. I mean, what's the point?
You know what they need to do, because I don't know if they change the uniforms year to year. To me, I didn't look like they do. Just go. Everybody wears their own jersey. Yeah, they wear their team's jersey. I like that better. You know, you just pick the the white, and I guess they do drafts now. They don't do helmets, right? Yeah, they still wear the helmets. They don't do AFC and NFC. They just draft.
I think this year was AFC NFC.
Was it AFC and NFC?
In the past, they'd had done drafts,
which I think's okay, whatever. But
no, you know what you do is you create divisional teams. The NFC East, the NFC West, the NFC North, NFC South. Everyone creates their own teams, right? So then you end up, what is that, 8? There's 8 divisions in football. You do an 8-team flag football tournament with these groups, and that's how it's picked. You draft a flag football team and do a tournament. A 2-day. Do it over the weekend.
Maybe not divisions, but
the divisions are great,
man. Yes. But no, because as a Cowboys fan, I don't want anybody on there from the Eagles, Redskins.
No, but I mean, you have them on your team anyways. NFC, AFC. You go in and you represent. Okay, this is the NFC East team, and we're gonna go and we're gonna dominate these other. And start to do NFC, AFC, do a bracket, round robin stuff, and then come in, boom, AFC, NFC flag football champions.
Do it all week.
Do it or I guess you could do it.
You could do it over the weekend.
Days. Yeah, do a Saturday Sunday deal. Why could you not do that? That would be.
When you get Roger Goodell on the phone.
And then in between, I know they did the skills competitions, which that's cool. I didn't really tune into them. We were busy. In the past, I have watched them kind of on and off. They're fun. They do dodgeball and they do catch and these passing drills. All those things are fun. But I'm telling you, NFC, AFC, but you do these divisional. Each division comes up and then faces each other in a championship flag football setting. I guarantee you your ratings go up from that higher than what this Pro Bowl had.
I think we need to get Chris Robb on the phone, see if he knows Goodell's number.
Yeah, we need to get some connections to...
Yeah, he's got to know somebody who knows how to get a hold of Goodell. If that's the case, we have Goodell on the show.
Let's get him.
He's listening. He's got to be listening. Come on.
If not, we're booking him.
Let's go. Roger Goodell. Sometime this year, we're going to have Roger Goodell on our show. You're just going to have to hit subscribe on YouTube or hit follow on whatever platform you're listening for podcasts.
Make sure so you know, because
like it.
You're not
you don't. No, you want to be one of the first ones to know, and you don't want to be left out. Because we're going to ask him about everything. We're going to ask all the hard questions. They're going to give us a sheet, say these are the ones you're allowed to ask, and we're just going to go off topic. It's not going to be very long interview.
We need to continue to push. We're gonna lobby to get that Pro Bowl. No, to get that Pro Bowl set up like that.
See, what we do is get with the USFL or the XFL to do the same thing.
Yeah, they just don't have enough teams to do it.
They're gonna fail and they're gonna fall. That's what happens. But the NFL is gonna adapt and adopt certain aspects. Like I think the onside kick thing, where you go for it on fourth, it's like 4th and 20 instead of doing onside. I think that was XFL or was it USF, AAFL. One of the teams is you don't do onside kicks. If you want to score a touchdown, want to get the ball back, it's do like one play, 4th and 20. If you get it, you get the ball back. Yeah. Something like that. I think that's where it's running because...
What was the other? The kickoff? They pretty much eliminated the running downfield.
Well, they don't do... You can't do that now in the NFL, but they moved it... Or yeah, the other team couldn't. They had to wait. The kickoff team could not go after the ball's kicked. They had to wait till it got past a certain goal line. That way you're not running as fast.
But they shortened it, right?
And they shortened it. You're only close. Like 20 yards apart, and and all. And I think that's going to be the byproduct of some of these leagues. Is they're just going to be rules.
They kind of adapt those ideas, even though these aren't tied in, just like how the MLB does as well. The MLB adapts different rules in the minor league systems to see. Some of them they're using the robot umpire, not robot umpire, but they have a earpiece. And basically, they're telling
the technology they're already doing.
Yeah, they're using some of that.
It's technology the MLB is already using. They're just not using it as official because you can see where the ball is.
Right.
And they're basically using that technology to call it a ball or a strike.
But then, they're an earpiece in.
And then the umpire's
calling. He's just relaying
he's just there
that.
to...
Right. But these are things that MLB's implementing and working and seeing what works and what doesn't work. Just like I think the time, like the batters, every pitch has got to be however often there's times on the pitches. You can't just take your time and make the game as long. They're trying to speed it up. They started that in the minor league system. This is the same that, these other leagues are trying different things, and the NFL is finding ways to modify them. I mean, think of something like the extra point. Backing that out, that was a money shot from the 2-yard line all day, every day. You back up to the 25, there's a lot of missed extra points.
And you had one
throughout the season.
And it didn't come down to making the game, but the missed extra point in the first score, or maybe the second score, on that last drive, the Bengals were about 20 yards away from McPherson tying the game into overtime.
And also,
if not, it would have been a 24-20
coming
game.
into geometry of it, which we're going way deep into that, making a longer kick, not just because it's a longer kick.
I was never good at geometry.
But the kick is going to be a lot flatter coming out, so you give the defense a lot better chance to time that up and get a block than they would if you're right in front of it. You just kick it straight up in the air.
And you're talking
it's going to get in.
You're talking about false starts and things like that, making it
a lot of stuff start to come into
more
play.
Difficult.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, no, we're talking about what rules people should do. And I was watching something the other night, and I think it was Friday night. So WWE Raw or something came on right after, which I'm not a big into wrestling, but it was just on. I'm sitting here watching it, like, obviously, people. I'm not going to say wrestling's fake for the people, because it's not fake. It's predetermined. That's what Hulk Hogan would always say. It's predetermined, because the blood and when they bleed, they get hurt. Those are real. That happens. But yeah, it's scripted. It's predetermined what's happening, and they go. I think they're going too far into drama. I don't know if it's always been that way, but I really couldn't get into it. It's almost like a reality show, which I guess that's exactly what it is. You think the XFL should kind of go that route? Maybe they'd get more, right? Than trying to just
determine the plays, the winners,
like some people think the NFL's already like that, but no, just make it more dramatic. Like, get into the backstory. Like, it's obvious what it is. Like, let's not try to pretend.
The hard part with any other sub NFL American football program is nobody knows who they are. That's really the issue. That you don't have any of these
get into it because you don't know
don't know who these people are.
And that's exactly why USFL went with the old teams. They didn't come up with new teams. They went with old teams, more nostalgia. People know who they are, the teams, and they try to follow them. But you're always going to get second-rate players.
That's the problem.
Back in the days when the AFL came and competed with the NFL, they were having their own drafts, and both leagues are drafting the same players. AFL was stealing some of those players. But you're not going to have that. You're not going to have... let's use Trevor Lawrence.
Well, you're talking about
Trevor
money.
Lawrence had no way he was, if the XFL and USFL, AFL,
the NFL
if they all drafted him, he would never go.
No, the NFL has monopolized it, where there's no way these guys can make the kind of money they'll make anywhere else other than the NFL.
Their best shot is to be an affiliated minor league system.
Yeah.
Because if you have, let's say you have a player who makes a resurgence, or you get a player who nobody knew of, and he has an awesome year. He's going to the NFL.
I can remember
he's going to leave and go to the NFL.
The European League, that was always great, I thought. As a kid, we'd watch that. In European League, and some of those guys would make it to the NFL. They were
they were affiliated
with them. But eventually, you would see a couple of those names you would recognize come and play. We really need that in the U.S.
But you saw
one of these leagues to adapt.
I can't remember the punter's name, which is just making our point even more. But in the XFL, a kicker. He was a really good kicker. And obviously, I don't know if it would have worked out if the XFL continued, if COVID wouldn't have happened. But he went and played in the NFL. But that's what happens. If you're going to have a really good year, maybe the XFL can say, hey, we'll just pay you some money to stay. Them so
that you have these guys.
They're going to leave and
instead
go to the
NFL.
NFL.
Because wasn't it in the XFL, were the teams affiliated, or you just had players that played on different teams, but you had the rights to them? That was what it was.
They weren't.
You didn't
XFL
have like a
was
team.
See, the USFL was trying to, or the AAFL a couple of years ago was trying to get some system where they're a minor league system or sub.
So essentially, you could add another.
But XFL was saying no, we're not doing it. XFL, not that the NFL.
But the European League, that's what it was.
Yeah, it was owned by the NFL.
But
the
teams
weren't owned by the NFL.
But the teams weren't owned by each.
No, the teams were owned by the NFL. And players,
you might have players spread out all over
because they had logos on their jerseys like
something
Cowboy
like that.
Star, and it's not like each
Which
team
would be
had
better
their own
here
minor
if you
league.
could come here and have we have this team that plays here in Arlington, the XFL. I don't even know the Renegades. Is that what?
That was it. Yeah. So,
but if that could be affiliated, okay, that's the Cowboys affiliate, and you own the players that are on this, and you sign contracts, and that's your scout team guys could go and play here. You can have all these guys here playing and getting active. Because think about it, you have these scout team guys that run scout team all week long.
They never play in real games.
Occasionally you bring one up, you get an injury and you get a guy, but yeah, they're not getting these real-time games. Have them playing some real-time football.
I mean, I know the NFL is trying to, I don't know if they legitimately are, wanting to expand into London. I don't know if that'll ever happen. But they are definitely wanting to expand to 40 teams in the next 5 to 10 years. Why not make up their own minor league system of like 8 teams, place them in San Antonio, back in San Diego, St. Louis, Orlando, all these teams, all these cities you are always up for teams. Put another one in New York. As minor league systems, and then do it, maybe they do it by conference or how many ever teams they have. This is where, maybe not conference because you don't want those players in playing, strategizing or whatever, but you have certain teams linked up, maybe like Dallas and Houston have a team in San Antonio and all their minor league or all their players, their practice squad. You could contract more players and, expand your rosters, and you already have players, what they are. Or if they get hurt, kind of have like, you put in baseball, you put them on assignment, rehab starts, things like that.
Well, and you have a lot of free agents in the NFL too that you're just sitting at home not playing.
You could test the markets there too.
Yeah.
And even take that team. Hey, when it's time to expand, take that team. And obviously the players are watching you do your expansion draft or whatever. But you have the San Antonio whatever promoted. They've been there for 4 years. People have apparel. They're following that team. Yeah. And now they take convert that team to not the players obviously, but to professional, like it's new. But there's already history there with that team, with that community, and they already that gives you the sense of it's not just a brand new team. You kind of have been following this team, and it has nothing to do with on-field performance, obviously, but it gives the fans the opportunity. Hey, you want a real NFL team? Support this team. Let's see how much support this team gets. Let's see how much money they can get, how profitable they can be in this area, and give them a chance.
Yeah. Thank you again for supporting the Business and Beyond podcast.
Be sure to hit the subscribe button to be alerted every time we post a new episode.